Welcome to Leadership Talk, the official Waymaker podcast, where we explore how your organization can achieve more by doing less. Well, welcome to Leadership Talk, the official Waymaker podcast, where we talk about how to achieve more by doing less. I am your host, Craig Hyndman, and with me is CEO and founder. I was going to say co-founder like it was me, but it's not. You're just the founder. Hey, Stuart Leo.
Welcome to the co-founding team, Craig. You're on the
Appreciate it. I've just
team.
put myself on. Yep. 50%, please.
Podcast host.
It's good to chat, Stu. Hey, Stu, last episode we talked about like 7 questions that we ask in strategic thinking. We wanted to talk a little bit about strategic command centers in this episode. What's that all about?
Well, Waymaker is in effect a strategic command center for your business, and it acts like that, it functions like that, and it gives you the power of that. And that's actually a missing gap in most people's thinking and technology setup.
So you like the military analogies in when it comes to business and strategy? What's it?
It's not because I'm from the military. I'm really not.
Right.
I just think the military, and we do have other analogies. Stick around for another podcast.
Yeah, okay, sure.
I'll make sure we do. But I think the military, it's kind of a zero-sum game. You either get it right or you don't, and when you don't, you really know you don't. Whereas, so it hones strategic thinking. There's never a more important time to think about strategic thinking, planning, instructions, commands, execution when lives are at stake. So I think the military or militaries, Western, Eastern, they hone their military practices and their strategic practices more often, I would say, than the business world because there's so much more at stake. So that's probably why there's a few examples.
So what does the business world need, a strategic command center? Why does the business world need strategic thinking in that space? Well, why take the analogy of a strategic command center from the military and put it in here? Well, actually, let's look at an example. Let's go back in. I love my little history. There's always a lesson in history. This is what I actually look forward to the most each week.
Your weekly session, a little history lesson. So there's that old saying, to the victor go the spoils. Everybody knows that. Well, to the loser goes the lessons. If you're lucky enough to survive the loss.
To survive.
So this is actually an example of military and civilian. So this is the story of the Bay of Pigs. And the Bay of Pigs, 1960, 61, it's a US example. I think we talked British last time. John F. Kennedy, JFK, was president at the time, which, he was perhaps the more Trump than Trump. We shouldn't make this show political. We're going to get cancelled or something. I don't know. No political assertions aside, but he was the original president that made Air Force One, and made the presidential experience a show. And he did a lot of things in the White House that changed the White House. Right. And this is one of them. So here we go. Why do we need a strategic command center? Well, it's 1961. Cuban Missile Crisis is, if it hasn't started already, the Cuban issue is huge in the US. And the US decided that they would back the opposing guerrilla forces to help take down Che Guevara. I can never pronounce his name correctly. Guevara, thank you, Che Guevara. And they plotted to put a Marine landing force on the ground, help arm the revolutionary forces and take over Cuba. Well, they utterly failed. And And so the Bay of Pigs was where they landed to do this and to kind of take over and beat the Cubans and the Russians and put a new line of defence in. They certainly didn't want missiles landing from Cuba in American soil. But hey, that's fair enough. The point is not, all the political issues around the Bay of Pigs. The point was the US lost, and they lost big. And
Right.
And it was a very felt loss. It was quite embarrassing. And so when the US stepped back and said, okay, what went wrong? One of the key insights was that the situation lacked real-time information coming into somewhere, being coordinated, processed, analysed, and set up for decision makers to make good decisions with that real-time information. So that's the key point. And so JFK, in his wisdom, said, well, let's fix that. And it was JFK that actually commissioned the work to create the White House Situation Room. So, which we all know from movies. We're not Americans, we're Australians. But, we've watched The Rock or West Wing or 24 or...
Give me something in the last 20 years. Designated Survivor?
Designated Survivor, thank you. I was actually watching The Rock last night on telly late at night when I got home. It was so cool. It was great. You can't beat Nicolas Cage at his best. Come on. Or Sean Connery. And so JFK instituted the White House Situation Room, which, probably the most famous moment in recent years of the White House Situation Room is when Obama took down Osama. So if we all remember that scene when there's Obama.
The pizza. With the pizza.
Was there pizza in the room?
Yeah, I think there was pizza in the room.
Okay, all right. Well,
I could be wrong.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's check.
You remember it differently.
I remember it differently. But so you've got Pentagon officials, you've got Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, you've got Obama, you've got all the leaders of the then presidential team in the White House Situation Room, which is actually called the John F. Kennedy Conference Room. And it's called that because after the loss of the Bay of Pigs, JFK said, we need a command centre. We need a situation room where when the poo goes down, people are bringing information to the table and that's processed and we can communicate. And so the White House Situation Room is born. And so the White House Situation Room runs 24/7. There's data coming in from both domestic and international situations. Interestingly, one of the principles they set up in the Situation Room was that it would be a bipartisan environment. So whether that exists or not, the principles of governance are...
Leave your politics at the door. We're going to analyse the data.
Yep. And so
non-biasly.
That's right. And the point is because if there's bias in there, then it will affect decision-making. And so... So the people in there are bipartisan. They're appointed by their specific departments and all relevant departments of governance, the ones that we know about and the ones that we don't, have representation around that table. And there's formal and informal moments of when situations happen. Then the leader of the free world, as the Americans like to say, we love a good American drama. I can't beat a good American action movie, and we like to rib our good American friends too. When that situation goes down, the situation room unfolds. Well, every business organisation typically has a boardroom or a major meeting room. It's not quite the White House's Situation Room, which has wooden panels that reveal red buttons and screens to world leaders, and you can't talk directly to Marines and SEALs dropping out of helicopters in the Middle East. But actually, they need that. Businesses, organisations, for-profits, not-for-profits, need a place where unbiased data can come in, and that data can be processed and understood, and decisions can be made quite quickly that have significant impact. And most organisations don't have that. They have a boardroom. They might have some business intelligence dashboards or some CRM dashboards or some reports or some stuff sitting in a Google Drive or a Teams room somewhere, but they don't have the discipline of the situation room. They don't have, because it's more than just data coming in. It's data coming in, being processed, being understood, and being ready for action. It's data that's that's able to be interrogated. It's data that is predictive as well as interpretive, and more than that, there's a governance and a set of principles and behaviours that when those people come to that table, they can enact and execute, and it's not the first time they've done it. And so
why is the strategic command center in the context that you're describing it? Why is the information different to a CRM?
Or a Tableau or your Power BI dashboards or something. Well, the key insight in the Bay of Pigs was real-time information. Now, I'm not suggesting that isn't real-time information. It is. But it's certainly not always real-time. It's often looking back. It's often data that is biased to one area. Often you have great dashboards on sales or great dashboards on marketing or great dashboards on finance.
CX or whatever.
Whatever. But rarely do you have a framework and a methodology that takes all that data and crunches it and helps you process it through a decision-making framework. And that's really what Waymaker's doing. And so what Waymaker is helping managers and leaders do is shift from old ways of business management into new ways. They need a new set of tools. That you can't always be looking backwards in time. You have to be looking at now in time and making predictive and scenario-based decisions quite quickly. And so
what were the old tools that need to be replaced?
Yeah, well, what's old tools and old behaviours, old skills and old systems. You know, I think there's 4 big ones.
Okay.
So we might compare the old to the new. Let's do that quickly.
Okay.
Because that's in a lot of our materials, and you can get this on our blog posts and in our training guides. The common old ways is the classic command and control, the top-down waterfall cascading goals and objectives. We've got a 3, 5 and 10 year strategic plan. Oh, that's great. Well done. That's good. The pandemic hit. How's that plan going? Financial crisis hit. How's that plan going? New competitor popped up that does what you do in 30 seconds. How's your plan going? You know, that command and control top down waterfall cascading approach to life really doesn't work unless you're in an extraordinarily stable environment. And okay, there might be some industries that are more stable than others, but it's rare. So that's one. The new way, if we wanted to compare and contrast that, is it's not an opposite, but it's an alternative. It's lead and empower. It's set a goal and navigate your way towards that. And you do that through bottom up, side to side insights and leadership. You're aligning value to goals. You're not aligning tasks to milestones. That's a big difference. You're aligning
values to goals, not tasks to milestones. That's good.
Yeah. So you know, we all, not all of us. Some of us are younger than us these days. We're old farts that were. You are older.
That hurts.
No, that does hurt.
I went to a parent-teacher interview the other day, and the teacher said that I was middle-aged.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah. First time I'd heard it at. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had our third child in our early 40s, late 30s, and apparently that makes you a geriatric parent.
In the schoolyard, or is that like a commonly held term? Is that
No, that's the medical term.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, off track. So aligned value driven agile value driven goals. So aligned value to goals versus waterfall and cascading milestones and tasks. It's just a different approach. It says, look, we want to get here. There is still a good goal to get towards. Let's growth hack our way towards it. Let's align to value along that journey. Let's not just assume that the 20 tasks set in front of us should be executed in that order. If there's a better way of getting to task in step 5, do that.
We want to know about it.
Yeah, because getting to the goal that generates
is
value
more important than how you get there.
Correct. Yeah, that's the point to make here. And to do that, you have to move from command and control to lead and empower. You have to throw trust down the line, and you have to say, hey, if you find a better way along the way, be a waymaker. Do you like that?
Love it.
So that's the first one. The second one, I better move faster through these. The second one is
number 2.
Number 2, get rid of long-term planning cycles. It doesn't mean you shouldn't think about the long term, but you need to think more effectively about the long term. I like the way Jeff Bezos does this, actually. He says, look, we can't assume things for the long term strategically. We have to say, what do we know will be true in the long term? So we know in the long term people will want cheap things. That's pretty much in the box of truth. So we can build strategy around that, but we can't build strategy around we know that people will want phones. Maybe there'll be a new device that comes along and we're all wearing glasses connected to our brains. I don't know, I'm being facetious here. The point he's making is, what do we know will be true in 10 years' time? We can build around that. If we don't know it to be true, then it goes in the it could change quickly bucket. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, there's a leadership teacher called Craig Rochelle, and he often says when he's speaking, he goes, what I'm about to tell you, I believe 100% for the next 60 days.
That's right. That's exactly what we're talking about. I love Craig. Long-term planning cycles are not wrong. They're just not right. And so we shouldn't throw our trust in them. So you have to go for the long-term goals and align to value along the way and get short-term wins. So long-term planning cycles contrasted with short-term wins. That's adopting an adaptive mindset. That's
great.
Plan, deliver, adapt. That's what Waymaker is built in. It's high-speed feedback loops. It's enough said. The third is shifting from functional excellence to data intelligence. Just relying on hiring good people and having functional excellence to get there is not good enough. You must have data intelligence. You have to have multidisciplinary, multifunctional problem solving, removing roadblocks using the data in front of you. You can't just say, I've hired a great sales leader, we're going to have a great sales team. That's a part of the answer. And this is where oh gosh, don't even want to say this because people are going to hound me down, but it's where Jim Collins in Good to Great is, get the right people on the bus, but get the right screens and the dashboards and the intelligence on the bus too, so that those good people can operate in other ways. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying there's more to the story than that one simple principle. So functional excellence to data intelligence. And then lastly, moving from stability, maintaining the status quo, where failure is a sin and don't speak up and hide the mistakes, to shifting to continuous improvement, where failure is a way forward, ownership and accountability, where things do break, you own it, 100% you own it. You don't break it again, you figure out how to fix it and you move forward, and you therefore reduce the amount of failures, and it's a completely different mindset. And I think we've all worked in organisations or spaces where failure is a sin, and we need to move to continuous improvement mindsets where, okay, failure is not a sin. There can be gross misconduct, sure, but actually finding those short-term failure points are actually forward movement releases. And so that's why we need strategic command centers. That's why we need new tools. That's why we need to think differently. And that's why some of our old command tools are stuck in the command and control, long-term planning, functional excellence, maintaining status quo. Yeah. And we need to move into command centers where it's lead and empower, short-term wins, data intelligence, continuous improvement.
So, yeah, do that. Okay, so we've got the old way, we've got the new way. How does Waymaker adopt some of these new ways of thinking and pull that information in a helpful way?
In a helpful way. Well, the framework, the methodology of Waymaker sets up and says we need to be continuously scanning these 6 areas: vision, market, strategy, business model, customer experience, and employee experience. And when we're getting data from outside and from inside coming in around those things, we're processing that data in a consistent manner and an intelligent manner. So we're surfacing data that's repeatable and we can identify patterns in it over time. We get short feedback loops across the organisation. We're able to get a picture of what's going on around us and within us quite quickly. And that's really powerful. That allows data to be crunched and processed, and for leaders to sit around a table and go, we shouldn't do that. We should do this, and here's why. Or actually, if we continue down this path, we're going to continue to veer off our long-term goal. Let's readjust and veer back in to our long-term goal. So Waymaker 1 is pulling in data that's holistic. It's not overweighted to sales. It's not overweighted to finance. It's not overweighted to one specific area. It's also not biased by department or level of the organisation. Everybody from the junior associate to the chairman can be participating and engaged, and therefore that data is coming in equal. That the loudest voice at the table is equalised and standardised to remove bias. And that's really hard in an organisation when you can't afford to put on 16 joint chiefs of staff and run something like what the White House runs.
So you also talk about like a 3-monthly evaluation process. Is that real time enough?
Well, that's a really good point and a really good question. You need to have both formal and informal ways of doing this. So,
great.
So the business as usual formal approach is every 3 months you're kicking through this process.
Yep.
Is that real time enough? I don't know. It's more real time than an annual plan, and certainly a lot more real time than a 3 to 5 or a 10-year strategy. Yeah, but it's not real time if something happens last week, or if something happened this morning, or if we know something's going to happen tonight. But what it does do is that operating rhythm and that discipline you've built quarterly is really easy to exact today. If you had to, you can say, all right, everybody, boom, let's look at our data. 7 questions. Okay, what have we got to adjust and change? And we can adjust and change and communicate with precision by dropping 1, 2, or 3 new key objectives onto our strategic roadmap, and everybody sees those the second they're in there, and everybody can adjust and adapt. And I think that's the power of giving people a framework and a methodology and a system to operate strategically, and that's what Waymaker's doing. Somebody said to me the other day, when they think about Waymaker, when it's in use, they think about swallows in the sky, or birds in the sky. And here in Australia, we get swallows and thousands of them are in a what do you call a herd of swallows? Is it a herd? A flock?
Yeah, let's call it a herd.
Biology wasn't our major.
A pod of swallows.
A herd, a flock. One moves, one makes the adjustment, and we don't see each one of them going, oh, let me think about that, I'm going to adjust course. We just see the whole cloud of movement changing.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're all in harmony, which they kind of are. That's what you're doing with your organization. And so Waymaker lets you do that. You can turn your staff not into a flock of seagulls, but into a flock of swallows that can move in harmonization. And that's both beauty in that leadership, but also really good leadership, really effective leadership that's powerful.
So the formal process kind of trains us in the way that we think and the way that we look at different situations and evaluate things. After a while, it's a lens through which we look, right? So that we can just like all quickly kind of be on the same page because we've gone through the formal process, quarterly or whatever. So
that's right. The ability to think fast, think slow is a really powerful ability. It was I think I referenced this book, and we're giving a guy a book plug in 2 podcasts in a row. But it's Daniel Kahneman. He's a Jewish psychologist that wrote this book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, and but a big premise of that book is we train ourselves to think fast by taking moments to think slow, and we apply that into our thinking, and we pick up those mental models and we use them. And when they're good mental models, when we have to think fast, those good mental models come to the surface and we execute, much like a professional athlete on a football field or a basketball court who can execute a movement because they've trained their mind and their body to execute that quite quickly. And so what we're doing in the quarterly cycle is we're thinking fast, thinking slow. When we need to think fast, we've got a thinking slow mechanism that comes to the foreset, and we've not just got the mindset skill and the language built and the culture built, we've got the technical system at our fingertips, which means if we need to turn 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people and move them across multiple geographic locations, you can.
So Stu, Strategic Command Center, that's what we've been talking about today. And if our listeners want to find out what that looks like for their own business, then they can jump on waymaker.io and sign up for a free trial. And subscribe to this podcast if you've been recommended by a friend or whatever. We'd love you to join us in the conversation as we talk more about how to achieve more by doing less.